Being ready.
Yeah.
Because you are...
Do I need my microphone or is that working?
No, it's not doing anything, so...
Don't yank it about and spoil it or anything. Can you pass me my iPad, son? I can unplug it. Should be fully charged. Ready to want it? Give it to me. Thanks.
No. You're up there, love.
Am I? I'm up there at the wrong height.
And there are 5 people watching us
5
faff
people
around.
watching us faff around. Hello everybody, hi. I just need to find me as well so I can read your comments, so bear with me one moment.
This was just part of an experiment. Put some pictures up online.
Alright, let me see if I can get everything sorted out. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it says test on there, is that the right one?
That's the wrong one.
Live.
You're looking at the wrong one.
Right, okay.
I need to be a bit closer to you as well.
Okay, so hello everybody. I'm going to do some printing tonight. So I've kind of been getting things ready. And I thought it would be quite fun to have a go at printing on the Japanese paper that's used normally for window screens and door screens, because I was given a roll of that. So I've been chopping up some paper and I'm still hunting for the right screen here. Can you find me the screen I need, love?
Simon, can you sort out the screen for us?
Right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to print up. You're looking at this now. I can't quite see because I haven't got my screen at the moment. So it's been from working hard to...
No, this works brilliant.
That's better. So this is the one that I'm printing. This is the Bucks graphic one that I've been demonstrating with, and I did a little tester print earlier to see that it was going to work. So this is the one I'm going to print up for you now, and this is the paper for the Japanese paper for you now, and this is the.
Hang on.
Sorry, we're having so many technical glitches tonight. It's been absolutely awful. And I'm going to do it with water-based inks as well. So as soon as I can see my feed, I will start answering questions and things. But let me just talk to you while they sort that out. And the inks I'm going to use are Lucas inks. These are the ones that I would teach with normally. So they're water-based. They need to be nice and easy to use quickly tonight. Oh, I can see now. Hello everybody. Hi, and hello Mark and Denise, and Gary and Claire. Yeah, welcome everybody. And I'm really sorry. We had this set up really well earlier on, and it all worked a treat, and then it all stopped working. So we've been a bit fraught. So I'm going to set up my registration device to print, and you can see this is very curly. This is the paper, the special washi paper that I'm going to use. Oh, right, now I've got my light. Now I can answer. Right, Marion, hello from the Netherlands. So I'm going to position it on the registration device. I'm not using the hack that I showed you earlier for making a smaller aperture for smaller pieces of paper, because I'm going to use a nice big piece of paper today. So I'm going to print this straight through. So hello Philip from Australia, you must be up at the crack of dawn, I should think. So if you've got any questions, do ask, but I'm just going to sort of plod away at this to give you something to look at while this is on. And right, Clive, hi, nice to see you live too. And we have Ben's brother here with us tonight. He has joined our isolation bubble, and he is the guy that does all the subtitling that happens on YouTube. So big thank you to Simon. So in case you've just joined, this is the print that I'm printing, and I'm printing it onto Japanese window and door paper, just for a laugh really. So I'm going to start with my first block here. And the thing about this is that I'm not going to print it like all over, like you would expect in a lino cut. What I'm going to do is I'm going to print this top part separately from the bottom area here to begin with. So I'm going to have to ink it in the registration device, which I wouldn't normally recommend, but I'm sort of squooched onto the table. And hello from Texas, and hello Julie, and Anise, is that right? I'm always a bit embarrassed about pronouncing names. So this is the water-based ink, this is the Lucas ink, and the reason I'm using that is because I've got loads of colours mixed up for students, so you don't have to watch me mixing colours, which is hard to set up. And these are the cheap rollers. These are SD rollers, and these are the ones that I recommend. These are like economy rollers that are the softest of the sort of cheap rollers that you can find. Rihanna, hi from Michigan. So name of the Japanese paper I'm using. Do you know? I don't know, because I got it from a Japanese friend of mine, and she was clearing her house out, and it was a roll of paper she'd had to repair her doors in her house. So it's not even printing paper, it's just for repairing the doors in a Japanese home. So it's washi, and washi paper's the one that I really like for hand printing, because it's got long fibres and it's really strong, so you can have lightweight paper, but you can still get a good result. But normally I would recommend printmaking paper, and there are lots of different washi printmaking papers available. It's just that I thought it would be a laugh to do a bit of a printing session on what is basically door and window paper. So what I'm doing here is I'm just being a bit careful to tilt the roller to catch the edges of the block while I'm inking it. Yeah, this is the new lighting. Yes, this is the new lighting. So what we put new lights in the studio, and these are LED lights. Are they daylight, Ben? Are they? Ish. Daylight-ish lights, but we bought this fabric, which is like photographic fabric, and it just acts as a sort of diffuser. It softens everything so there aren't hard shadows, but it's already full of flies, so that's going to be a nice job taking that down and cleaning it at some point. So now I've got that inked up, I'm just going to have a go with my Baron. So this is a Baron that I would normally use for Japanese woodblock. There is nothing wrong with plastic Barons for lino cut printing, I would say. It's a bit of a fancier one. Right, Claire wants to know how long, if cared for properly, do you think the blue SD rollers would last? Or should you invest in better quality? Do you know, I think that they'll last a long time. How's that printed? Yeah, that's good. So I think you'd find that they would probably last a good few years. The question of investing in more quality, what I would do is I would have some SD ones in different sizes, and then find, Doris is coming to say hi. Have some SD ones in different sizes, and then choose yourself, if you find there's one you always go to, and that's your favourite, then I would then invest in an expensive roller at that size. But the SD ones should be pretty good, I think. So you'll notice that I haven't printed this bottom bit yet, and I'm going to come back to that later. And now I'm going to go on to my next block, which again is split up. So I'm going to print this palest bit at the top, and then this bit down here a little bit later. Are SD roller, Gary wants to know if SD are soft or hard. So the ones with the blue handles, those are the ones to aim for. The red handled ones are the hard ones, and the blue handled ones have a little bit of give to them.
You got those other ones?
I've got a red handled one over there, and the black. Do you want to bring the black handled one as well? So these are the ones I would teach with, and actually I think they're a pretty good buy. And thank you very much, my lovely assistant. So this is these are the hard ones, and personally for me that I don't like them as much, especially with water-based ink, because if you're rolling out, the harder the roller, the more it skips and the less even the layer of ink is. The best equivalent I can think of is men's razors. You know, in the razor adverts, they show the razor bumping along. It's that sort of effect. If it's hard, it's not catching down and picking up a nice layer of ink. These are, this black handled one, they describe that as the professional quality. It feels pretty hard to me, and I confess I haven't tried it because they sent me a lovely big one. So I'm quite excited to try that. But certainly the blue ones I would vote for. Just put those over there. And where was I? Oh yeah, I was going to ink this up. So let me just do that. So I'm just rolling that over, and really I'm letting the, I'm not pressing hard to do this, I'm just letting the weight of the roller put the ink on. So I'm just taking my time and making sure I catch down all the edges. So I don't normally print with water-based ink, but these are great if you want a quick result. Good, I'm glad, Claire, you know that sorted that problem out. So I'm just going to roll that over. Pop that down again.
You have somebody here who's actually used a black roller.
Oh, right, Rona likes
likes
the black roller. Cool. I look forward to trying mine. Okay, so I've got my next layer on. So what I've just done here is I've printed the sky bit, and I've printed this background pale green, and also it's doing the palest bits in the tree there. So that's the bit I'm printing. And again, you can see I'm not printing that bit down here just yet. I'm going to do that later. So let's put that over there. What can you use the red rollers for? That is a good question.
Squeezing the ink up to the top of your
squeezing the ink
roller,
up to the top of the tubes,
paint.
says Ben. Yeah, squeezing the ink up to the top of the tubes. Anywhere, I mean, if you want pressure on something, I would use them for stuff like around the studio, like if I was wanting to crease, you know, if I was folding paper and I wanted to run the crease and get a good crease, anywhere where you need a hard pressure. I just find them really not so good for printing, but I know that like my red one's going off to the workshop with Ben, and I expect he'll use it for some purpose for his woodwork. So now I'm coming on to, so this is the block that's like the big block. So I need a nice cohesive coat of colour on there. Have I ever seen stainless steel barons? I have one that's £10. My goodness, £10. And also a clay potted baron. I've never seen. I have got a ball bearing baron with steel ball bearings in it, which is very good. But I've never seen a clay one. And also the other thing I've never tried is a glass baron. I think they're called glass frogs, which I know a lot of people swear by. The reason I've got a traditional baron is because I learned Japanese woodblock in Japan. I was given a baron there, a traditional one, and I've been using them ever since. But when I teach with the plastic ones. But ESD are going to send me one of their kit ones, their little ones, to try, so I can report back. So yeah, barons. It depends on what weight of paper you use. You see, I'm advocating kind of quite lightweight paper here, so I don't really need a heavier one. But I totally understand that if you're using a more solid paper, then you definitely would need a good sturdy baron. And I know several fellow printmakers who like ball bearing barons. I'll get mine in a sec and show you what it looks like. Right. And you see how long it's taken me to ink this up? I mean, admittedly I'm gossiping while I'm doing it, but I'm coming at it from several different angles so that I make sure that I get, because I've punched lots of holes in this bit, I'm trying to get the ink nice and even. Now my sister-in-law Denise, who is watching this, said that she would prefer to paint the daisies on rather than cut out all the little holes. Oh, thank you. And I was thinking about that today when I was getting ready, but Denise, you have to remember that now I've cut the holes, every print will have daisies on it, but if you paint the daisies on, you have to paint them onto every single print, so that's not really a time-saving thing. So, yeah, here's my ball bearing baron. You can hear it. And I really like this. I use this quite a lot, but we bought this in Japan before I was any the wiser, and the only thing I would say about this one, I don't know if you can see, but it's a sealed unit. So as you use it, little paper fibres go inside it, and it gets loads of fluff inside it, and that gradually slows down the ball bearings. So fortunately we worked out, I dropped it on the floor one day and it exploded, and we then cleaned it out, and we've worked out that you can actually split them open, but you have to break them to do it and then glue them back together, which Ben is very good at, but it's not perfect. But you can get ones that you
Sorry, who did?
You fixed it. But yeah, you can get ones that you can take apart and clean the fluff out of. So I've lost track of quite how wet this is now. Let's see how we get on. Oh yeah, Paul Fenot. Yeah, absolutely. Paul Fenot is, for those of you who don't know Paul Fenot, he's a Japanese woodblock printer, and he is based up in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and we shared a studio in Tokyo last year, so which was great fun. I had a whale of a time doing that with him, and indeed, yes, he has a ball bearing baron. So you'll notice that I'm just like printing layer after layer here. I'm not letting them dry out, and it's kind of, in an ideal world you'd let the layers dry out, but actually the nice thing about this Japanese window fabric is that it's quite absorbent. That's the other thing about washi, it's quite an absorbent paper. It works really quite well. And I would point out that printmaking washi is even better than the stuff that I'm using at the moment. So I might just resort to my spoon to check out where I'm going. So
Rihanna's got a question about ink swap.
oh right, you have the inks laid out ahead of time. So working time, yeah, oh that's a really good question. So let me just peel this up. One of the things I would say is that it's really important not to let the ink dry on the block. You see, I was sort of, if I was chatting to you and that was still stuck down, it could dry very quickly. On the slab, I'm just going to put a little bit of extra ink there. On the slab, with these Lucas inks, these water-based Lucas inks, they're pretty good. I mean, it's quite warm in here. In fact, I might get my brother-in-law to open the door. It's that you have a fair amount of drying time. If I was teaching a class, for example, I'd probably expect them to stay on the slab for about an hour. However, let me just get it. There is a drying retarder. Cranfield make a drying retarder. Let me hold that closer to the... Sorry, there's a delay on the camera, so I'm not sure. Oh, that's really helpful. I've got the label not pointing at the camera. Yeah, they make a drying retarder, and if you use that at about sort of 3% of the ink, it works really well. Thank you, Ben. For keeping them open for water-based inks. But I reckon with these Lucas inks, you've probably got about an hour. It's very weather dependent, though. All right, that's better. Bald patch there. So I'm being picky here actually. I'll be fine. That's better. Yeah, that's good. So they're not bad. I've got a video coming out next week about editing, and one of the things that I've got in that video, which is really important, is that with these water-based inks, if they dry on the block, let's say for example you think, oh, it'd be great to stain my block so I can see what I'm doing. If you let them dry on the block, you can then wash them off with a damp cloth, which is how I would normally clean them. So I would normally just wash them off. But if the ink has had a chance to dry, not all of it comes off. So you might think, well, that's fantastic. What I'll do is I'll let my ink dry on the block, I'll wash off the excess, and then I've got a nice stain. However, what I discovered is that the nice stain, as soon as you ink up to start printing again, it lifts the stain and the stain mixes into the ink you've just put on top of it. So I demonstrate that in the film, but it's just sort of an aside. I've never come across that before because I don't tend to work in water-based. I would never stain my lino with a water-based ink, but I found that out. So that's probably worth a mention. So let's just put that to one side. Now where am I going? So now I think what I'm going to do next is to put in, so next I'm going to come to this layer here, just to put a little bit of depth into the foreground. So I'm going to ink that one up. But I am going to wipe this top bit off because I want to make sure that that doesn't rip the paper. So if you had ink left behind, sorry, Ben's making face
there's a
at me.
question here from earlier on. Kevin Mears, hi Laura, are you using extender in there to, and if so, how much?
Right, no extender. This is straight ink. No extender in these. I've got one that I'm going to use in a minute that's got a bit of extender in it, but these are extender. Kevin, if you're printing the edition, would you print each print as you're doing now, or would you print each colour on the whole edition? Absolutely, I'd print each colour of the whole edition. I would never print like this normally. This is just for the benefit of the camera and for you guys, obviously, out there. So you see I wiped that top bit off. If you are doing this and you've just printed the top bit and then you think I'm going to print the bottom bit, if you leave that on and it's starting to dry, with water-based ink it can get tacky, and if it gets tacky it can rip the paper. when you print the other bit. So just, if you use water-based ink, just make sure there's no like ink in another place that might get tacky and sticky. It doesn't happen with oil-based inks, but it does with water-based inks. And that's very soul-destroying when it rips your print. So let's do this next bit. So you were asking about extender, and I do have one here. I feel this is very Blue Peter. People in the UK will get that reference. Blue Peter was a children's programme where they were very good about preparing everything in advance. So here I've got some ink with some extender in it. Now this has been sitting here for a little while, and it's beginning to feel like it might be going a bit stiff. So I'm going to put a bit of drying retarder into that. So just grab myself up. So this drying retarder is really good stuff if you use water-based inks, especially if you're in a hot country or a hot climate, because it will keep them loose. That's better. Just going to make that a bit looser, but it will make the ink more fluid as well. So just going to mix that in. So that's better. You can see now the ink's moving really nicely there. And the other thing that I might do with this is that if this translucent is with some extender in, if it's not dark enough on the first inking, then I'll just double ink it. So double inking is something that happens quite a lot in Japanese woodblock. I don't know that it's that common in liner cut, but I use it quite a lot, just to build up colour without having to sort of go back and mix a darker colour. So let's just get that one there. Okay. Of course, with this paper, I can see from the back what I'm doing, which I quite like. And you might notice that well, you probably can't see, but I'm varying the pressure here. So little detailed bits, a lot less pressure than if I'm doing the whole thing.
Do you want some baking parchment?
No,
Is the ink coming through?
No, it's all right.
Is it going to get on your band?
I don't think so. No, I think I'm all right. So let's have a look and see. That might be a bit. So what I'm looking at there is not dark enough for me, so I could double ink it, but actually it's a bit pale, so I'm going to just get a wisp of darker colour. Okay, so Cardamom P says, what would happen if you sprayed a fine mist of water on water-based ink that's been rolled up in your slab? You could. If I was going to do that, what I would do is I would gather it all together in one sort of lump, and then I would just add a tiny bit of ink. I had a hideous class once in a school where they provided me with inks, and the inks were doing exactly that. They were drying, and I didn't have any of the drying retarder. So I did actually, I think what I did was to sort of scoop them all together and then just mix a bit of water in it, and it does work. But I think I wouldn't try spraying it on rolled out ink, because you'd probably just have to just re-roll everything. Let's try double printing them. We'll see how we get on. So my trusty spoon here. This is a family dinner spoon, and I've taken all the silver plate off the back with it. That's better. So now I'm happier with it's quite subtle, but I kind of like that, so I'm going to leave it as is. I think you know, sometimes it's nice just to have something that's quite subtle in the background there. So I'm going to leave that as is. And now I'm going to make that way. And let's see if I can find that other block. That's not it. Here we go, this one. So this is the final block here, and before I do that, actually I'm going to go back to this block and print this bit down here. So this one I'm definitely going to double ink, because you see I've got like shadows at the top here. If I show you actually on here, I've got these quite subtle shadows up at the top here, and then I want it a bit bolder down here. That's not very good, you can't see it. I'll get Ben to hold it up for you so you can see a bit better. I want the white thing to hold it against. That's better, yeah. So you can see the difference between the two shadows there. So I'm going to try and print those. So you might notice as well that I now have a very posh hanging system for my inks there. I have a friend who's a painter, and that's how he keeps his oil paints. So I have stolen his idea and asked Ben to do this. So these are just like ring, what are they, rings? I don't know what you call those, but they're sort of like little rings that screw into the wood, and then bulldog clips just to hold the inks out of the way. Right, so Gary wants to know, when you're printing wet on wet like this, any problem with the ink coming off onto clean areas of the block and blotching up the print? Shouldn't be a problem. If you print wet on wet, the thing that's going to catch you out is probably more likely to be that your edges get a bit blurry and soft. I would always say, if you're doing something really delicate, make sure that the layers underneath are dry before you print, because wet on wet can just stop being quite as sharp. Washi paper's pretty good because it's quite absorbent, because it's a long fibred paper, and because of the way it's made, it's a tangle of fibres, so its absorbency is very good, and the paint tends to go into the fibres. If you have a look at the back of this one, you can see how that's taking the paint right into itself, and so this is quite good for printing wet on wet. But it doesn't tend to blotch up. If it was going to make a mess of the block, it would be more that there was I hadn't cut it right. If it's cut right, it shouldn't do that. Thank you, Mark. They are called screw eyes. Thank you. So these are screw eyes, and then it's a bulldog clip. So you take the handle out of the bulldog clip and throw it through the screw eye, and then reassemble the bulldog clip. And it's a really good way. I mean, for the first time in my life, I've been able to find the right colours and things, which is fantastic. And it keeps everything cleaner as well. Okay, so I'm going to go, what colour am I doing this? Just need to get my head around my colour. I had all my colours worked out before live stream, and then we had this big panic with it not working, and I kind of lost track of what I was doing. So I'm just going to go back to that darker colour. Okay, and
Question about colour shift when inks are drying off.
Oh, do the colours stay true? They shift a little bit. The water-based ones, what I find actually with water-based is that sometimes it's more that when you mix them on the slab, they look a little bit different from how they would look on the paper. So they can look edgier and a little bit darker on the paper than they look when you've mixed them. But they sort of, what would I say, they settle, which sounds like an odd sort of thing to say. They kind of, calm down after about 24 hours. So like there's a blue in this water-based inks, the Lucas inks, there's a blue, and after 24 hours it becomes much flatter and more opaque. It's quite liquid to start with. So I'm just putting in that darker area. So I'm just going to change to the spoon to a little rubbing. Back. Okay, so I'm just putting in the dark parts of the grass. I might just do those back shadows as well. Okay. With oil-based inks, they do tend to stay truer. So let's try that. I find it easier to mix colour with oil-based than with water-based, I have to say. That's better. So you can see I'm doing a lot of back and forth here. I mean, partially that's because I'm not focused on it at all, and I'm talking to you and thinking about what I'm saying rather than what I'm doing. So, but quite often when I'm printing, there's a lot of to and fro like this, where I'm inking and that's better. Now I'm going to make the foreground darker, so let's have a look and see if I can do that. I'll grab a colour on my dark blue. So here is the dark blue that I was talking about that goes a bit darker when it dries. So these are not Lucas's containers, these are my containers. These are actually for cosmetics. I bought them on eBay.
Is this the neat blue, or is this a mixed blue that you've made, love?
This is, I think I put a tiny bit of white in to make it easier for students to use, because when it was a neat blue, it was actually quite hard to print with because it's completely transparent. That's better. Let's make that a bit darker. The paper that rolled up, is that washi paper? Does it always work? All right, okay. So the reason that's rolled up is simply that I've just got it off a roll and it's been quite tightly rolled for quite a long time. So normally, it depends how you buy it. I mean, I tend to buy paper on a roll because I use a lot of it. And so it can be quite curly, but it's usually quite manageable. Let's just get rid of this. And certainly if you buy the washi in sheets or on that Hosho pad, then it's absolutely fine. It's completely flat. So so we were talking about the Hosho pad at the last live stream that I did, and I was sent one by hand printed, and actually it worked really, really nicely. I might hop up and get that. That's just the Hosho pad. It's over on the Reg device on the shelf over there. Right, so I'm going to go back to this and make it a bit darker because I'm not that happy with that.
And there's a question about oil-based ink.
So that's the Hosho pad that we were talking about last time on live stream, and you can get that from Hand Printed in the UK and also from Intaglio in London. They supply it, and it's really lovely for hand printing on for lino cut. But Hosho, I mean, that's a type of Japanese paper, and I know Origami make Hosho, but I think you can get that reasonably easily. It just so happens that this pad is quite a convenient size for a lot of people. So yeah, I would really recommend that. That's a good thing. It costs about £18 for, and I think there are, I can't remember, it's 60 sheets, something like that, for that. So Do I think I get a better quality? I get a better quality print when I'm focusing on what I'm doing. But yeah, I like oil-based better because it's easier. I find it easier to get the colours that I want when I'm mixing colour. You tend to get. It's easier to see what you're getting with oil-based ink. And if you're printing with water-based ink, the other big problem is if you work on a large scale like me, sometimes it can cockle the paper. I tend to work to maybe layers in the high teens, 20 layers, something like that. And if I was using water-based, I'd be really worried about it causing the paper to ripple. So I quite like the oil-based for that, and if you use dryers it works really well. Oh right, okay. All right, so yeah, hand printed are sold out of the Hosho pads at the moment, but they're coming in at the end of June, Shirley says, who runs hand printed, so they are coming back into stock. She's got them on order.
50 sheets.
Oh, it's 50 sheets. Sorry, guys, it's 50 sheets, not 60 sheets. I don't know where I got the 64 from. Right, okay, so that's printed. And now I'm going to do the darkest layer. So I'm just wondering, yeah, on this one that I showed you earlier, I actually missed out one of the blocks. So I've put that in now. I was doing that in a bit of a rush, so I'm now going to go even darker with a bit more blue. So Simone says you can get Hosho rolls in Australia from the Melbourne Etching Supplies and Neil Wallace Printmaking Supplies. So I think that's probably pretty good. I mean, the thing about Japanese paper is it's the construction that's important. It's that long...
And Intaglio has them in stock.
Oh, Intaglio's got them in stock, those Hosho pads. It's the construction of the paper. It's because you have long fibres in the paper, it's fantastically strong. So you can have like almost a tissue paper, but it'll still be really sturdy because instead of it being paper pulp, which you can imagine is little short fibres that fracture easily, this is a massive tangle of long fibres, so it doesn't want to tear, and it's very, very durable and sort of hard wearing, which is why Japanese tissues are very popular with people who repair books and stuff like that. But it's not a cheap paper. It's quite expensive to make as well. So let's get this dark layer on. So, incidentally, I've been using the extender that I was using earlier is Cranfield extender. They make an extender, but they're discontinuing their inks, so they're discontinuing this. But I think Speedball make extender and water-based ink. Yeah,
they weren't discontinuing the extender because it works with their acrylic paints.
No, that's the drying retarder.
Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Ben is saying that they are discontinuing their water-based inks. Cranfield water-based inks, they're discontinuing, but they aren't discontinuing the drying retarder. And the drying retarder, as you can see, you can use with other inks. So that's still going to be available. So Kevin uses Speedball extender. Is it good, Kevin? Because I don't really know about Speedball. I'm not familiar with their ink. last bit printed properly. So this has been quite a laugh to print on this window fabric, but I wouldn't super recommend it. That's not bad. I think we could probably do with another bit of ink up the top here, so maybe we'll have a bit there.
There's a response from Kevin there as well.
So yeah, so speedball works okay. I must try and get hold of some and give it a go. Right. Good. So let's just unpin this. So in the videos I'm making, I will use proper paper and not window paper to use, so that it'll be like proper printmaking paper. So there's the. I'll hold it up against a piece of white paper so you can see it. Let's put that against some white paper. So there you can maybe see better. I'm going to get Ben to hold it for me. Lovely. That's it. Oh. Yeah. There we go. So you can see that's the one I've just done. Yes, they are continuing to use, they're going to be producing Calico and their oil-based inks still. So those will definitely be available. So now I've done that one, let's maybe do a more painterly one. See if I can do something a bit more creative. So yeah, I was quite pleased with the daisies. We got a lot of, actually they're going over now, but we've had a lot more daisies than usual around here because nobody's been cutting the grass at all. So let's have a sky with a bleed of colour. So I'm going to go, I'm just going to move some stuff around. Bear with me 1 second. There. I'll get rid of that. So the reason I'm using water-based tonight is, as you can see, the clean-up's really easy. I've just got a wet towel here that I'm just using to wash off. There we go. Those out the way.
Do you need a handful?
If somebody... Actually, no, don't mind. It's fine. Okay.
Probably a good idea not to get too overwhelmingly complicated with this.
Am I running out of time?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Oh my god. Okay, see what I can do in 10 minutes. So no pressure there then. Let's put a fresh piece on. Oh, Linda, thank you. I'm glad that you think the work is good. So, what I wanted to show you is a sort of like slightly more painterly approach, but maybe that would be more accurate to say a slightly more panicked approach, because I didn't realise I had 10 minutes to go. But anyway, I will have a go. Though I can stay here, everyone else may go, but I'll sit in the studio and carry on. So I'm just taming this. This paper is very curly indeed. But it just goes to show, actually, with lino cut, I always say to people, you know, try whatever you've got in the house. And I was teaching a guy once, and he said, "Oh, I wonder if milk bottle paper will work with it." And I've never heard of milk bottle paper. And I said to him, "What do you mean?" And it turned out that he was at a factory. He worked in a factory, and they were changing the way they were bottling. And this is way back when. And it was there was a roll of paper that they used for printing adverts on for milk bottles. And the roll of paper was about 6 foot high and about 5 feet in diameter, and they were going to put it in a skip. And he said, no, I'll have it. I'll take it home. And he'd been using this paper for everything ever since. You know, there was like masses of industrial sized paper. But it did work. It worked a treat for his purposes. So I am now going to grab myself a fresh roller. Fortunately, because I teach, I have a lot of rollers, and so what I want to do is to give myself a bit of a bleed of colour in the sky. So instead of doing a rainbow roll, I'm just going to do a roll where I'm just going to ink the top part into nothing. So you see how I'm just using half the roller there, and it's just making. So what I've got is I've got ink on one bit of the roller. So when I come to do the sky, I'm just going to get a bleed. I might have started this too. I think I've started it too high up. Let's have another little go. Such a tiny bit of sky. So I'm going to go try and catch it better. That's better. That's more like it. So this is just to give myself a bit of a gradation in that sky. And I'm just keeping the roller nice and parallel. And working it to get it nice and even. Okay. See what I've got. So instead of having a whole flat sky, what I'm getting is a gradation of the sky. So if I show you my block there, you can see it's gradated a little bit. And since we're running out of time, I'm going to go straight to my grassy block. And I'm going to do 2 layers, and I'm going to do a bit of wiping but also a bit of free inking, what I would call free inking, which is a term I coined. And normally, normally what I would do is to use little tiny rollers, but I'm going to use what I've got here, and I'm just going to play a bit. And I'm letting the weight of the roller do this. So rather than inking all over, I'm just going to paint, really, and do myself a... And this I do quite a lot on landscapes. It's quite nice. I've been working on one where I've got like green going into a bronzy colour, and rather than do it as a rainbow roll, I quite often will just paint like this. It gives quite a nice texture. You can see. Now people get agitated because obviously each print's going to be different, but I never let that really bother me too much. It's never really been an issue. So let's just get a little bit like that in there. I'm just trying to make sure that I've got all the daisies caught in, and maybe we'll have a little bit of dark down the bottom. And it just takes a little bit of practice to get your hand in with this. Let's see what we've got. Oops. Hi from Italy. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to be said for just playing, which I do quite a lot, and just fooling about with it and seeing what you get. So let's have a look, see. So you can see I've got some baldy patches around the daisies there, so I'm just going to go back and work on that little bit again. Let's just see if I can get those inked up. That's always kind of, it's a bit tricky sometimes with blocks where there are little holes in them, because it's quite hard to get an inking on. It's even. What are we doing? Let's have a bit more. If you want to do this though, use the weight of the roller, don't press. Just let the roller deposit the ink, and that way you get much more interesting shapes developing and stuff. So let's see if I can get that better. And I quite often do like multiple inkings but no cutting, so I might do I have a stock range? Oh right, no, the reason I've got a stock range of colours, John, is just for teaching. It's nothing to do with my printing. That's better. So now I'm getting somewhere with this sort of more painterly approach. No, it's for my students. So when I've got a class of 10 people, I won't actually let them mix their own colours, because it just like is chaotic and there's too many people going on and stuff like that. So what I do is I let them have a range of colours, and they do reduction print, and they each make 6 prints in my 2-day class, or more if they want, and they have to stick to the colours, but I suggest that they mix and match the colours, so they end up with 6 prints in completely different colourways, which I think is a really nice way of exploring colour, and also it makes them take more risks and things, so we end up with like purple skies and pink seas and things like that, and I think that's quite a nice way of working. Hi Jane. Hi, welcome. Yes, Janet's is in Virginia. Yeah, the painterly thing, it is a really nice way of working. Let's do the tree. It's a question of experimenting, you know, and really fooling about with it. And the more you experiment and get your hand in, kind of the better you get at it. Okay. And it does mean you can kind of spot colour, and you can drop in colours and stuff like that. So you can really start to be quite loose and free with it. If you look on my website, on my gallery, there are some quite painterly prints there. So. And also it means you can work on just little sections of the block. So that's...
Very Bob Ross, love.
It's not. Well, I feel that Bob Ross would be better prepared than me, and he would certainly be a lot calmer than me. Bob Ross always manages to make it look like it's no panic at all. That's better. So now it's coming. So let's have a little go with the darkest block, just to. Do that. Here we go. So every time we do this, we swear we're going to be really well organised, and then it sort of degenerates into chaos. So now I'm going to go much darker over the top of that. Oh, Carol says that she just watched a tutorial that said what you're doing now is impossible. I love those tutorials. Somebody once came to me and said that you couldn't cut away more than 40% of the lino on a lino cut, which has always struck me as very funny. I love it when there are like these arbitrary rules, and I don't, there are no rules really. I think the only rule that I have is that if I'm selling something, then it has to be of really excellent archival quality. Like I would make sure it was good quality inks and paper, and that it was, Ben's very particular about the way that he frames stuff. But otherwise, I think anything goes, doesn't it? Oh, the earrings. Yeah. Well, it was getting late, and I thought I must do something that makes it look like I haven't been all day in the studio, which I have. So yeah, they were a last ditch effort, but I like them. They're made of wood. It's not plywood. That's the wrong hardboard or something. They're wooden anyway. Thank you. I bought those at the Sainsbury Gallery in... where's that gallery, Ben? We went to the Norman Foster building. Norwich. There's a fantastic gallery in Norwich, which I really recommend, which has got a really excellent gift shop.
Sainsbury Gallery.
Sainsbury Gallery in Norwich, yeah. Really recommend that. That's better. So let me rip that off and show you. Or I might just put a darker bit in there. I should be letting you all go off and do other things, but I just want to put a darker bit of shade in, and then I'll show you this print.
No, Linda, I didn't make these ones.
What, these earrings?
No.
Earrings. I have got some earrings that Ben made, which I'm very fond of. I should have to put those on for a live stream. Let's put some bits in the grass down here as well. Okay, that's better. So if I take that off and hold it up, you can see. So this is my very panicked, and it's not even got all the blocks in it or anything, but let me show you. See, Bob Ross would never do anything like that. That's the white sheet. Pass that over to Ben. You've got it. Can you hold it so it doesn't curl up? And hold it into the camera. There you go. So hopefully you can see with that much more paint. You can see the bleed in the sky better, and that kind of very painterly. I mean, that's terrible, but it gives you an idea of how you could do it with multicolours. But I would really encourage you just to fool about with whatever paper you've got, whether it's milk bottle paper or it's window paper, whatever you want. But we'll probably do a film of me doing a bit more organised free inking than this. But yeah, have some fun, mix it up. If you are using Safe Wash inks, you can do that with Safe Wash as well. I've done that at a festival where I was just like painting all over the place with them. Yeah, panic approach. It would be less panicked if I hadn't had a glass of wine before before we did live stream, which was not a good idea. But it's a nice way of working, and I really recommend it. So it does mean you can build up colour. These days I tend to use it in a more controlled way. I'm not quite as random as I used to be, but it is a really neat way of just dropping bits and pieces in. Good. How did I do? Oh, it's not that far off time. We managed to make it through. So I managed to do 2 prints tonight, which is a miracle. I didn't think I'd manage any. But you see also, hopefully, that frame kind of just locks in the print. I think that's quite... Put that there. So it just helps with the overall design of that. But I want to do the other version of this. I'm going to do very much more as a kind of nighttime dusk sort of scene in very transparent inks. So yeah, are all my rollers soft? Yeah, they are quite squidgy. The squidgiest ones are my these ones. This is Durethene, and this came from Lawrence's, and it's I don't know if you can see, but it's not just squidgy. It's positively sticky squidgy, and those are fantastic. They cost a lot of money, but they are really, really nice. They come with a fancy brass handle and stuff, but that's my favourite one. Any news about the orange SD rollers? Right, okay, I was sent some samples by SD very kindly, and I did ask about the orange rollers, and they sent me a roller that's also got a blue handle, and there's no point me showing you because it looks absolutely identical to this, but it's 40 Shore, and it's quite foamy and squidgy, and I wonder if that's the same thing. And it's nice because it's soft, but I think it's intended for fabric printing, so for taking fabric ink rather than printing ink. So I'm not quite clear. I need to check with them about it. So I haven't seen the mythical orange handled ones, but I have seen a 40 Shore blue handled one, which is like, it's slightly foamier surface. But I will ask about that. So yeah, good. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will probably next live stream I will try and be a bit more organised, and hopefully I'll have the other version finished and I can do some sort of transparent printing and things which might be quite interesting to watch. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you at the next live stream, and the films are going out as always on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. The apparent free flow approach, it wasn't entirely free flow approach, I can tell you. So Philip's off to have his breakfast. Good, good. Oh, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it all. And I will catch you all later, I hope. Night night for now.
Say good night, dear.
Yes, good night, dear.
If I can figure out how to switch it off.
Can't switch it off.
Bye-bye.
Bye.